Now let's go back to our page index and close all the tabs so we don't have any visual pollution. From here we can see that it is the Add Post component that is responsible for making the post. Let's press Ctrl and click on Add Post. Look for Create Post, remembering there is some information that we don't have in our schema at the moment. But we don't need to worry. We are doing Create here. If we don't have Select Post Quote, which would be the response with the information, let's go to the Create Post function. Let's press Ctrl, click again and enter the Use Post function. Now, here we already have Create Post. That takes the information and sends it to this Create Post in Post service. Another thing to notice here is that we are using user. But here, it still has the ID. Remember that it's ID user here also, so probably this would come as undefined. We have to keep an eye on it. Let's now enter the class to create the post. Press click here. Here, we will be receiving the user, ID, and text. Let's check our Swagger. What do we need to create a post? Let's go back to the post documentation. Get in Post, and if we notice, we need the post ID, post date time, and the user ID. I'll put it back in a corner the documentation. Here in the VS Code, we already have two things that we need. I'll commenting that return we won't need that. And these constants here. I could remove all of this, but I'll leave it just to see how it will look. Some things we already have, like the user's ID and the text. So, we need to generate the UUID here, which he was already using in data. We can reuse this UUID. Let's make an object too, write const. I'll take the same name here to create the object. We'll have the ID post, which will be the UUID, and ID, which he was already using before. Then we will have the text, which is the post. Put here the text post, which is above the date time. Let's leave new data here for now. But we'll do a better configuration later, and be ID, which will be equal to the ID of the next user. For a better formatted date, already configured using the date FNS format, we can use the format function. Let's see how to format it. I'll search for date FNS on Google. This library is widely used. You can access the documentation here first on the list. Click on Format Date. So let's see how we can format it. It passes the month, day, and year, so we can take it in the format. Let's see how we can install it more easily here. Looking at the installer, npm install date FNS. Let's copy this and go back there VS Code. Let's install it here, but we are using yarn, so yarn add date FNS is a widely used library. It's usually one of the most downloaded in projects. Let's make a configuration here as shown on the documentation page. I can pass my date and month, and we can do something similar to what we were using before. Let's go back to the code. Let's create here, const current date with date time. Let's get the new date function again, as we were doing below, but instead of passing it directly, that we have our library installed. Create const formatted datetime. Let's put it like this. We saw that it was a format. Let's see if it can be imported, otherwise I will have to go there and import manually. I'll have to import at the top. Let's import it here, which will come from a date FNS format datetime number string options. Let's minimize the other functions so as not to confuse them. Now, let's get our format like I was doing before. Here we get the current date, which is the current date that arrives, comma, and as it was in the doc, here we pass the month, the day, but our time is different. So, let's write the year. Now write the month in capital letters, the days in lowercase. Let's write the hour, 2 minutes and seconds. So with this, we can already format the time without much trouble. This doc is very good to use. Now configured what we need inside, we can send it directly to our API. Let's see the endpoint, which is the post bar. Let's create again try and catch. You already know, const res. Usually we don't need to return the response like this, but we're using a toast, so let's see what we can do. Await appy.post. Copilot already understands approximately what I want. /post, which is /post and the object that I will be sending, and here we will return a res. If there is any error, console.log error. This is now the point of making our post. Let's check. Let me save and